Title: At a wedding reception, she introduced her lover as a family friend. When I played their texts on the DJ's screen, the dance floor cleared. The air was electric with laughter and music as the wedding reception reached its peak. I watched my wife glide through the crowd with that same dazzling smile that once felt like it belonged only to me. But tonight, something was off. When she introduced the man standing beside her, a man with an overly familiar grin, as a family friend, I felt the weight of every suspicion I had ignored for months. Little did she know, I had come prepared. The DJ's screen wasn't just for the playlist tonight, it was about to become the centerpiece of a revelation no one would forget. The grand ballroom of the Beverly Hilton in Los Angeles buzzed with excitement as the wedding reception reached full swing. Ethan Bennett stood near the bar, swirling a glass of whiskey, his eyes discreetly following his wife, Victoria. She was radiant in her emerald green gown, her laughter cascading through the room as she charmed everyone in her path. But Ethan wasn't mesmerized. He was uneasy. For months, subtle changes in Victoria's behavior had gnawed at him. Late-night work meetings at an office in downtown Manhattan, text messages she hurriedly deleted, and her growing emotional distance had set off silent alarms in his mind. The tipping point came just a week ago when, after hearing her phone buzz incessantly late at night, Ethan had picked it up out of curiosity. What he saw wasn't just suspicious, it was devastating. A string of flirty messages and romantic confessions exchanged with a man named Daniel Reeves, someone Ethan had never met, left no room for doubt. Tonight, as Victoria introduced Daniel to the guests as a family friend, Ethan's stomach churned. The casual way her hand lingered on Daniel's arm and the knowing smile they shared were unmistakable signs of something deeper. Standing there amidst the glittering chandeliers and lively chatter, Ethan resolved that this was the night everything would come to light. As the evening unfolded at the Beverly Hilton's luxurious ballroom, Ethan felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him. Torn between anger and heartbreak, he clutched his glass, staring at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the shimmering lights of Los Angeles. The evidence of Victoria's betrayal, screenshots of her intimate conversations with Daniel Reeves, still burned in his mind. Confronting her outright felt too impulsive. He needed undeniable proof, not just for himself, but for everyone in the room who saw Victoria as the perfect wife. Determined, Ethan discreetly slipped away from the crowd and approached the DJ booth tucked in a corner of the ballroom. The DJ, a young man named Marcus, raised an eyebrow when Ethan handed him a small USB drive. "What's this?" Marcus asked skeptically. Ethan hesitated, but calmly explained it contained messages that needed to be shown on the screen when he gave the signal. At first, Marcus balked. This wasn't part of the night's playlist, but one glance at the incriminating screenshots convinced him otherwise. "All right, man," Marcus muttered, tucking the USB into his laptop. "Just give me the word." Returning to the reception, Ethan felt his pulse quicken. The tension was unbearable as he watched Victoria glide across the dance floor, her hand brushing Daniel's arm, her laugh louder when he was near. Guests clinked champagne glasses, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Ethan, however, saw every detail, the shared glances, the stolen moments, the unmistakable chemistry they failed to hide. The perfect moment hadn't arrived yet, but it was close. He could feel it building like a crescendo in a symphony, each note bringing him closer to the revelation that would shatter the illusion Victoria had so carefully crafted. The reception had reached its peak, with laughter and applause echoing through the grand ballroom. Ethan's heart raced as he watched the guests raise their glasses for the toasts. The time had come. Clenching his fists to steady his nerves, he stepped forward and took the microphone from the best man. Smiling politely, he began his speech, his voice steady despite the storm within. "Thank you all for being here tonight. Ethan said, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Marriage is a beautiful bond built on trust and honesty. And tonight I'd like to take a moment to celebrate those values." His words were deliberately calm, laced with subtle tension that only a few seemed to catch. Turning slightly, he locked eyes with Victoria, who stood frozen beside Daniel. Then, with a casual nod to Marcus at the DJ booth, Ethan gave the signal. The ballroom fell silent as the screen behind Ethan lit up. At first, the guests thought it was part of the evening's entertainment, but as the messages appeared, their smiles faded. Text after text scrolled across the screen. Flirty exchanges, intimate confessions, and plans for secret rendezvous. The words were damning, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Gasps rippled through the hall, and whispers grew into murmurs of disbelief. Victoria's face turned ashen, her wide eyes darting between Ethan and the screen. Daniel, who had been standing casually moments ago, shifted uncomfortably, his confidence draining under the weight of the exposed truth. As the reality of the messages sank in, chaos erupted. Guests stared at Victoria and Daniel, some in shock, others in anger. A few even blocked Daniel's attempt to slip out, demanding explanations for the betrayal that had shattered the evening. Ethan, however, remained calm, his expression resolute. He wasn't there to plead or justify. He had done what he came to do. The truth was out, and the perfect illusion Victoria had worked so hard to maintain was in ruins. The once lively wedding reception descended into chaos. Guests huddled in small groups, their voices hushed but animated as they gossiped about the shocking revelations that had unfolded on the DJ's screen. The bride and groom, caught in the crossfire of the drama, were visibly furious. This was supposed to be their special day, now forever tainted by scandal. Victoria, still standing near the dance floor, looked utterly shaken. Her confident demeanor had crumbled, and she was frantically trying to explain herself to anyone who would listen. But the whispers were louder than her words, and no one seemed interested in hearing her side. Daniel Reeves, her so-called family friend, had slunk to the back of the room, his head low as he avoided the accusing stares of the guests. Ethan remained composed, standing tall amidst the storm he had unleashed. As the murmurs grew louder and Victoria stumbled through excuses, Ethan raised his voice just enough to command attention. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his tone calm but firm. "I didn't want to do this, especially on a day meant to celebrate love and commitment. But I believe the truth deserves to be heard, no matter the cost." Turning to Victoria, he added with finality, "This marriage is over." The weight of his words hung in the air as he placed the microphone down, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the exit, his head held high. Later that night, Ethan sat alone on the balcony of his apartment, gazing at the Los Angeles skyline. The weight of betrayal pressed heavily on his chest, but beneath the pain, there was a quiet sense of relief. For months, he had been drowning in doubt and suspicion. But now, the truth was out, and the facade had crumbled. The marriage he once cherished was gone, but so too was the deceit that had poisoned it. Ethan resolved to rebuild his life, free from the shadows of dishonesty. The Beverly Hilton's glittering ballroom, the shocked faces of the guests, and the chaos of the evening felt like a distant memory now. As he sipped his whiskey, he realized that while the end of his marriage was painful, it was also the beginning of something new, a future where he could finally find peace. As Ethan stepped out of the grand ballroom of the Beverly Hilton and into the crisp Los Angeles night, a wave of mixed emotions washed over him. Behind him, the chaos of the wedding reception continued to unfold, a once joyous celebration now overshadowed by the brutal truths revealed on the DJ's screen. The muffled sounds of guests arguing, the bride's sobs, and Victoria's frantic attempts to salvage her reputation faded as the city lights stretched before him. For Ethan, that reception had not only marked the end of someone else's special day, but also the end of a significant chapter in his own life. The betrayal he had uncovered and exposed wasn't just about infidelity. It was about the lies that had eroded his marriage and stolen his peace of mind. As he walked toward his car, Ethan took a deep breath, the cool air stinging but refreshing, like a reminder of his newfound clarity. For months he had lived in the shadows of suspicion and heartbreak, questioning his instincts and his worth. But tonight, honesty had cleared more than the dance floor. It had cleared the path for his future. There was no turning back now, but there was no regret either. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt free. With each step, the weight of the evening began to lift. The city buzzed around him, cars honking, laughter spilling from nearby restaurants, and the faint sound of music from another event. Life was moving on, and so would he. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was his to navigate. Ethan didn't have all the answers yet, but he knew one thing for sure. This ending was also a beginning. A beginning free from deceit, filled with the hope of rebuilding and rediscovering himself. And as he slipped into his car and drove away from the scene, the glow of the city lights reflected in his rearview mirror, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. The dance floor. "Hello?"